Hi, and thank you so much for returning to the Dare to Share channel. This is Sonia, and we are continuing along in the works of Dr. Miles Monroe, Overcoming Crisis, the Secrets to Thriving in Challenging Times. Stay tuned. Ready for anything. Here's the bottom line. Effective management is what will determine the amount of your resources. If you are a good manager and you obey God's principles, it will not matter what kind of crisis comes. You will be ready. You will be able to weather any crisis, even if some of the resources disappear. You will have a savings account to tide you over in case you lose your job. You will know how to consider carefully whether or not you can afford to spend money right now. Sometimes we like to quote Proverbs 13:22, at least the first part of it. The first part reads, "A good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children." And we agree with that part easily. Then we gloss over the second part of the proverb, "But a sinner's wealth is stored up for the righteous," because we're not quite sure what to do with it. Years ago, the Lord brought me up short. I was quoting that second line as if it was a good thing to say. The Lord spoke to me and said, "Don't quote that line as if it's a good thing. It is true that wicked sinners have your wealth, but that is not a good thing." How did they get the wealth? God gave it to them. Why would He give it to them instead of to the righteous? Because they managed it better. He gives resources to those who manage well, even if they are sinners. That money will not come to you as you stand there saying, "Money, come." It will not come to you by your binding or loosing anything. You may have been praying to no avail for 10 years for additional monetary resources, and you still do not have a thing to show for it except sore knees. The resources do not come by prayer, even if the prayer is long and loud and sincere. The resources come through prayer in addition to good management of the resources you already have. Start small and work up. Start by being honest, by not taking that insignificant little paper clip. Conserve. Stop and think. Do not throw away that piece of paper. Write on the back of it. Turn off the lights when you leave the room. Tithe your income. File your taxes honestly. Do not live above your means. Economize. Maximize the minimum and get the most out of the least. I was shocked when I studied economics in college and found out that when you reduce it to its simplest definition, economics means to maximize the minimum. You take a little and make the most of it. That is simple economics. A good manager is a good economist. If you are an economist, a good manager, you will take one apple and plant a tree from the seeds. Then, when it produces more apples, you will sell them and be able to grow more apples from more seeds. You will manage your resources so you can add value to your gift. God does not encourage waste. If you are a mismanager, you will take your paycheck and cash it. Then on your way home, you will stop to buy something to eat. You will notice a sign that says sale, and you will stop to purchase some new shoes. You will put down some more money on a new suit. What did you just do? You did not manage at all. You consumed. You became a consumer. Your routine is to buy, and buy some more. You say, "I can get whatever I want. I have the money." Most of your paycheck was gone before your foot even touched the front step of your house. The Proverbs are filled with good observations, such as, "The diligent man prizes his possessions," Proverbs 12:27. The good manager values what he has already. How do you handle what you have in the rooms of your house, your money, your time, your relationships. Do you prize them? Managers prize the little things. They pick up every crumb, as the disciples did after Jesus fed the 5,000. See Mark 6:30 through 44. Why did Jesus tell them to collect all the scraps in baskets? I think it is because he was accountable to his Father in heaven, and he had just used some of his Father's fish and bread. It can be a good idea to go through your closet and find clothing that hasn't been worn for a long time. Start wearing it again or give it away. Take care of what you have. Manage it well. Be prudent. Be resourceful. Another proverb reads, "The plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty." Proverbs 21:5. This applies to people who ask for handouts. If you spend time with someone who wants a handout or something for nothing, you're in bad company. People like that are taking the easy way out, and all they will get for holding their hands out is more poverty. If you need money, you should not just ask for it. You should ask, "What can I do for you to earn some money?" Stop looking for a handout and start looking for a hand up. That is better management. It shows respect for the person you have offered to work for, and it shows self-respect too. It shows that you want to be diligent, to manage your efforts, and to manage your relationships. You will find many more practical suggestions as you read the rest of this book. This is a primary principle of the kingdom. Overcoming crisis depends on good management, and good management is the same as godly stewardship. If you live by God's principles, you will reap the increase. If you manage what He has already given you, He will be able to trust you with more. A test of management skills. As an effective manager, you will be like Joseph, whose godliness and diligence kept him within the protection of God and enabled him to draw others into the same safe place. When you read the story of Joseph's long life, you can count many times when his management skills were on the line. They were tested. More than once he seemed to get knocked down, but never was he knocked out. I believe that God allowed each one of those crises to test his management skills. Would Joseph rise to each new challenge? Will you and I rise to ours? When Joseph came up against a crisis, he was quick to develop a strategy for confronting it. When he correctly interpreted Pharaoh's dream about the years of plenty and the years of famine, he came up with a plan simultaneously. He was only about 30 years old, but it was obvious to him that God wanted to warn Pharaoh of the impending crisis so that he could get his nation ready. And Joseph had already figured out what it would take to get the nation ready. What did Pharaoh do? Thank Joseph for his suggestion. Pat him on the back and send him back to prison? Of course not. He promoted him. He said to Joseph, "Since God has made all this known to you, there's no one so discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you." Genesis 41:39 through 40. Joseph got promoted because of the crisis, or more precisely, because of his potential ability to manage the crisis. That morning he had been a prisoner in the dungeon. By afternoon, Pharaoh had put him in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Pharaoh had even given him his signet ring so that the transfer of authority would be complete. Joseph, remember, was not even an Egyptian by birth. He was a Hebrew and a foreign slave. Apparently, however, it did not matter where he came from. What mattered was his ability to manage the crisis. So for the first 7 years, he dedicated himself to traveling throughout the land while the crops were abundant. He was diligent, orchestrating the collection of all the harvested grain, storing it up in great storehouses in the cities. At the end of the 7 years, when the crisis of the famine hit, the country was ready. The citizens could go to the storehouses and obtain the food they needed. They had so much that they could help the people from other countries too, and that included Joseph's father and brothers. Who could have known? Only God. And God had prepared Joseph. By the time Joseph had to face the crisis of managing agricultural resources in the time of a regional famine, he had been prepared by having to overcome every previous crisis of his very eventful life. Each crisis had been designed by God to test Joseph and to make him more able to overcome the next crisis. Joseph stayed close to God, even when he found himself in a pagan culture where he didn't know the language. He had always remained disciplined and careful. Unlike many of us, Joseph did not waste a nickel of his resources. He worked hard at whatever he was given to do. That did not change even when he was in the dungeon, completely out of his master's view and away from the public eye. I'm sure he made course corrections as he went. He had a lot of time to think about what he might have done wrong and how to do better next time. He allowed God to speak to him through his circumstances. Although each test was radically different from the one before, he passed all of them. Before the onset of a crisis, Joseph was already holding the right keys in his hand, ready to unlock God's wisdom and provision. Is it the same for you and me? Even if we do have to find out the hard way that we have wasted the resources we were going to need, and that includes invisible resources such as time, diligence, and honesty, we can repent. We can change our thinking. We can rally. With God's help, we can let our current crisis motivate us to overcome not only the bad circumstances, but also the bad habits that contributed to the crisis in the first place. Bottom line. To overcome a crisis, bottom line, you need to cultivate godly management skills. How can you do that? That's what this book is about. We are the caretakers of the earth that God created, and He is our personal caretaker as we do so. You will learn to be a manager, a caretaker, by paying attention to your caretaker. The more closely you walk with Him, the better. He cares so much for you that He keeps leading you into His truth. He uses every crisis situation to advance His work in your life. In His care for you, He will correct and instruct you. He will equip you so that you can please Him as you learn to manage your little corner of the planet, becoming like Joseph, victorious over every crisis. Wow, thank you so much for following along with the reading of Overcoming Crisis, a book written by Dr. Miles Monroe. Stay tuned for the next chapter. If you have any comments or questions or suggestions, please leave them below. I am always happy to read them and comment along with you. Also, I pray for your family, just as you pray for mine. Thanks for tuning in today to the Dare to Share channel. As always, God bless and have a wonderful day. Bye.